Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wired Nerdy Podcast. This is episode number 20. This is Keith coming in hot with my co-host here, the notorious DOUG. Doug, how you doing? How is the week treating you, my friend?
Doing good. Yeah, had a good weekend. Finally got some rain. Also got to look at some new Xbox games. Look at that Starfield game I've been waiting for. So it's gonna be a good show.
Yeah, we got all kinds of content because Microsoft did have a showcase this week, which of course means lots of news. They're right hot on the heels of the Sony showcase that
Yeah.
was 2 weeks ago, I believe. So we got a lot to talk about there. But before we get into that as our primary topic, and we will round it out a little bit with a little bit of Diablo 4 talk and Flash movie talk. Doug, have you seen the Flash movie though?
I have not. I was gonna get your thoughts on it and try to go see it this week.
Oh, well, it will have to be spoiler free. So all
Yeah.
right. Well, let's go ahead and cue up the nerd news.
Nerd News.
All right. I'm going to jump in first, my friend. So, this is an interesting thing because it's something that I think that we will see more and more often as we head into the future. There was a massive outage. I believe it was on June 13th, if I remember correctly, depending on whenever you're listening to this. And the outage was with Amazon Web Services. Now, for those of you that are unaware, that's part of the cloud. Cloud, fancy term for saying that these are just data centers hosted by somebody else. And the major players, of course, are Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and a variety of others. However, Amazon is definitely one of the biggest players. And this was in the US East region. Most of these data centers serve different portions of the globe. And it was interesting because it impacted pretty much every major fast food joint on the East Coast, like Burger King and Taco Bell. Couldn't place orders, couldn't do anything. All of their apps and software are hosted by Amazon Web Services, and people could not get their Big Macs and could not get their tacos, Doug. How sad is that?
It is not good. Yeah. You
So
go into these stores now and they don't even have cashiers. They have the
kiosk.
self-order kiosk.
I love
So
it.
I'm sure you can't even order a burger. Yeah.
Well, I that is becoming more and more common. And what's interesting is that when it comes to a lot of these cloud-based web services, it's a good thing in the fact that it allows businesses to scale up, scale down. It can control costs. You got to be careful with it because the cloud is like a taxi meter. Is what we always talk about. It's based upon usage, and so however much you're using, your app is being leveraged or used. Your price can fluctuate quite a bit. And that's
Mhm.
one downside of businesses have kind of struggled to get used to because they like fixed costs. They like to know how much is it going to cost me. So that's one of the downside. What's really interesting about why I put this on the news is because it calls into question that whenever you have major players in the cloud space, how easy it is to have an outage with one little thing that goes wrong. And if you don't have, certain mitigations or certain places in place for redundancy. And within the article that I read, it mentions that as of today, Amazon Web Services host 41.5% of the internet. And that's like internet content, that's applications, major applications for business, for point of sales. It's all kinds of crazy stuff. On top of that, right on the heels of them is Microsoft Azure at a 29.4%. And there's quite a few times where Microsoft will take a hit. They will, have an issue within their Office suite, which impacts if everybody's using Microsoft Teams, which is their equivalent of Zoom, it'll be down. Or even Microsoft Online Office itself will be down. Excel, Word, PowerPoint, all these major companies using, all these products for everyday stuff, and it actually can prevent a company from being productive. So I thought it was an interesting shift because, cloud is now so prevalent inside of our
Mhm.
world, but it also means that we're sensitive to outages more so than we ever have been before. So next time you cannot check out at your local fast food chain, maybe it's a cloud outage. Just saying, may not be just that place. So I just thought it was
Right.
an interesting thing. But right on the heels of that is a second one. We always say that this year, every time we have nerd news, it would not be this year if it wasn't something about AI. This is
Mhm.
specific to a report. Now, OpenAI, who is the one that developed the Chat GPT, which is the more dominant, more impressive AI model that was trained on a learning language model. There was a report that came out that before Microsoft had invested in OpenAI, which was tons of money, and integrated it with Bing. This report leaked had indicated that OpenAI had warned Microsoft about uh, early on after they integrated into Bing bizarre AI responses. At the early launch, it was doing things like not only giving wrong information, but it was insulting people. Telling them they could go commit suicide, telling them
Oh my
they're
goodness.
they're horrible and ugly. It was being racist. But remember,
Yeah.
the AI is trained on language models that could be wrong. So if you point
Mhm.
a language model at the internet, for example, as we know, the internet has some great things, but it has some horrible things on it as well.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
in the wake of this, Microsoft, of course, got into the front of it, and they had to tweak some stuff, turn some things down, stop insulting people, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that Microsoft kind of forged ahead on this, and you know, business drives it all. So it's really really interesting how all of this has played out, and AI develops from this point on. So I don't know if you had any weird oddities with you playing around with any of the open AI stuff. Did it ever insult you? Tell you to
It is not. I've asked a couple questions of it. I've spent a lot of time on Bard, and I haven't asked really complex questions. I haven't had it write any stories or do anything. But it's some of the simple questions I've had, it answers it. At least I think it's fine. I mean, stuff actually for No Man's Sky, which I've started playing that. I've asked it some puzzle questions. It's helped me with that. So
That's good. That
as far as using Bard, it's been working good so far.
Now, see, I've deviated from Bard in that, remember, Google has two. They have Bard, which is supposed to
Hmm.
be, they launched it on the heels of ChatGPT. I'm now a part of what they call their secret labs. I'm on their beta. What's really cool about that is every time I Google something, not only does it give me the results of Google that you normally would get, but at the top, it gives me their other AI model, Braid. They had another name for it, if you remember, with their
Yeah.
showcase. And it explains in more exposition, more AI type information of the response be. And it's been pretty spot on. I like what Google's doing in that they're integrating it a little bit better into their search engine. They put them parallel next to each other, and it's citing sources. I know Bing is going to start doing that as well. They said that in their showcase about how you can actually click and it'll cite sources as well.
Mhm.
They're just trying to
Mm,
get out of fire of people criticizing it for plagiarizing and
yeah.
things like that. So it's very interesting though.
Yeah, the one thing I like is that, normal Google search or whatever your preferred search engine is, it gives you websites. Where this, it gives you specific answers. I even asked, I mean, I've only used it for video games and stuff. I asked it for cheat codes and stuff, and it gives you do this, go this menu, go this menu.
That's really
So I
cool.
like that instead of saying, hey, go to this link, here's the answer you want. We're not wasting your time. So I think in the future, it'll just get better and better, and we'll no longer visit somebody's website. We'll just get the answer extracted from their website to us.
Exactly, which is going to impact website hits unless there's some kind of a weird algorithm shift that they can do.
That gives them a
Because
hit still. That would be good.
maybe they do. So,
Yeah.
all right, Doug, I think it is your turn for the next headline on the news. What you got, bud?
Yeah, looking through some news articles, I saw one that just jumped out. Disney is blowing up plans for the next set of Avengers movies. We had a really good series all the way from Iron Man to Infinity Wars and all that. So we're getting ready for the next iteration of Avengers and all the stuff that comes with it. The
Yeah,
one thing I saw is that but they're pushing back all the Avengers movies, but they're pushing up the Deadpool movie, the next one,
they
Deadpool
are.
3, I believe.
Most things got pushed by almost a total of a year.
Yeah,
But then they pulled Deadpool up you know, uh, earlier
and
in
I
the
wonder
timeline.
if the writer's strike has anything to do with that. I
It
believe that's
Yeah,
still going on, or it's about to wrap up.
exactly. I think it is still going on. It is an influential factor.
Hmm.
And you'll see this with a lot of studios are doing this as a result of that. However, the other elements to play here, some of the things that I've read is that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was their last release, it was a mega hit. I mean,
It did really well, I thought.
it it did, and it was a great movie. You
Yeah.
also have to question if this isn't convenient, the writer's strike, them being able to push this stuff out to kind of regroup. because the reality is, while they got cool stuff on the list, they're going to redo Blade, which was a cool
Hmm.
franchise. Um, they're going back through a lot of this, but the biggest thing is they have the Avengers, which is the Kang Dynasty, which is probably going to tie into the Kung Fu Chang Chi, but that's not going to be till 2026. The reality is, when it crescendoed with Endgame, that was many, many years in the making. And I think that they've kind of been on this, well, how are we going to recapture that magic again? And it's fascinating to me too, is that one of their main people, especially the guy that hit the home run with Volume 3, James Gunn, is no longer
Yep.
making movies for Disney and Marvel. He's now with their competition over at WB of Warner Brothers and DC, which honestly, I love. You know me, I'm a DC guy, but their movies have not competed head to head with Disney. So I'm kind
Hmm.
of wondering if that also isn't a factor coming into play, them trying to figure out their footing on all of this and to see where they land. So a lot of people are bummed about a lot of this stuff being pushed though.
Yeah. We can kind of run down the list real quick. Deadpool's coming out. Captain America, a new, and you talked about the Thunderbolts. The one on the list that excites me, and I don't know if he's going to continue, but John Krasinski played a fantastic Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought he did a really good job. It was a really good alternate universe. I believe it was Scarlet Witch on Netflix or
Yep.
Disney
No, it's on
Plus.
Disney Plus. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
at Disney Plus. Yep, I got too many streaming apps, but yeah, I thought he did a really good job. So seeing Fantastic Four on the list, maybe John Krasinski will come back and play that part.
I hope so. I hope so. I love him as an actor. He's amazing.
Yep.
Um, you know, Fox did Fantastic Four a couple years ago and just fell flat on its face.
Yeah.
Then
Yep.
you have the cheesier, which still wasn't bad, I didn't think, with the one with Jessica Alba and all that. That was,
Hmm.
more early 2000s. But they haven't seemed to have been able to get the Fantastic Four quite right. The closest they got was when they had John Krasinski do the cameo for, what's that, Doctor Strange? I think that's what that was.
It might have been. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was Scarlet Witch or Doctor Strange. Yeah.
I think it was Doctor Strange. If
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but no, I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's been a while. I've slept since then. So anyway, yeah, you can keep running down the list there. Some of them I don't know what they are, but like I
They've
said,
got some
Blade
that
stood out
just
to me.
say Untitled movie.
Hmm.
Blade, like you said, really good. Wesley Snipes did a great job, I thought.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So,
even Chris Christopherson. So
well, at least they pulled back Deadpool. A lot of people looking forward to that. Big thing about Deadpool. Do you know who they're bringing back? Don't you? And this is not a spoiler, by the way, because it is
oh,
public on the internet. Hugh
who you got for
Jackman.
me?
Hugh
Yeah.
Jackman. He's back
Uh,
as
yep.
Wolverine, even though he died in Logan. And it would only take Ryan Reynolds to try to pull him back because of their little
Oh yeah.
friendship feud frenemies they have going on, which is quite hilarious.
There
But
might
it'll
have
be
been
good.
some kind of plea or deal to I'm going to stab you on camera.
It could be something. Who knows with those two? They're really
Yeah.
funny together. To me, I
They
think
are.
their public funny relationship is equivalent to like The Rock and Kevin Hart. The way they make fun of
Mhm.
each other and razz each other, it's entertaining. They do a really good
Yeah.
job. So I think they'll be really good in a movie together. Um, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Yeah. Next one you got, we kind of talked about exciting stuff coming up.
Yeah, speaking of Disney, Star Wars. So they have the official slate of dates of upcoming Star Wars movies and TVs. Now, this is, everything that was announced in what they called their Star Wars celebration at 2023 and beyond. So, Ahsoka, that will be hitting Disney Plus on August 23rd, plays by Rosario Dawson. Of course, Ahsoka was
Yeah.
tied into the animated series like Clone Wars, and she was trained by Anakin. Really cool character. I thought Rosario Dawson like crushed it in earlier. She was showcased in the Mandalorian series. Um, and just she did a great job. I'm looking forward to this. The trailer looks awesome. So we have that
Hmm.
to look forward to at the end of August. They have something called Star Wars Skeleton Crew. They've not
Yeah.
said much about that except that John Watts, the director of the latest Spider-Man trilogy, is helming it. Jude Law is the one of the main characters, and he has a group of kids that set around the same time as The Mandalorian, and I don't know what they do. Not much is known about it, but it's described as a throwback 80s Amblin type movie, like The Goonies and Everything Else Where All at Once director Daniel Kwan. is set to direct some episodes. So this is a TV series that'll be on Disney Plus, and the date on that is just sometime in 2023. It's ready when it's ready, I guess. You have
Yeah.
Andor season 2, which will be in August of 2024, so a year from now. You also have Star Wars: The Acolyte. Not much is known about this as well. But the cast does include the guy from Squid Games, the Lee Jang Jae.
Hmm.
He's kind of the head dude, and this is kind of neat. And this whole thing is, again, there's not much. It's just set in the later days of the High Republic, is what they say on that one. And then they have undated. They have an untitled Star Wars movie. They don't really say much about it. They actually have quite a few of these. Uh, you know, they know who's directing, but they don't know what the topic is, and it's
Hmm.
everything from Dave Fillion, who's a director for to focus on the New Republic as well. James Mangold, he did Logan, which I just mentioned a moment ago.
Hmm.
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is about to come out. He is going to be doing a Star Wars movie. So they really announced who a lot of the directors are going to be. There is Lando. It's going to be coming out, which who knows who's going to play Lando Calrissian. They just got so much stuff that they announced. So really, it's just showing that there's stuff in the sack on doubling down on who the directors are going to be, and that they actually have a lot of plans for Star Wars, universe within itself.
Yeah, it all looks good. We don't really know what's coming out, but if you look at Star Wars as a franchise, there's so much money in it, and not that they're just beating a dead horse, as the expression says. I think they're doing a really good job of telling all these stories because there's so many characters, so many different paths, so many things that fans and new people alike want to know about Star Wars and get into the history and the culture and everything about it throughout the
Y-
years.
Yeah, I think they're trying to do some. They're trying to do some different stuff, which I appreciate. It's an IP that it's a big
Yeah.
universe that they need to explore. So I think they're doing. I think they're doing the best they can. I think they're doing a good job with it so far, especially with a lot of the television shows. They've been really good. I think Obi-Wan was amazing. I've enjoyed, Mandalorian. They're doing a good job. So let Disney keep doing the Disney thing, and it's working. They're not destroying it completely as a lot of people thought they might. So
Mhm.
the last one on the list here before we get into our main topic is an odd one. And for those of you who have heard of a game called Mass Effect, it's very popular. It came out on every major platform, and it's a action role playing game set in space. It's very, 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 very good. Apparently, there is a main character that's called Shepard, and you can choose. You can build this. This is your main character that you play. You can either be a boy or a girl. Well, part of a promotional thing is that they keep re-releasing the Mass Effects game. That when they remaster them and re-release them, they have 1, 2, and 3 all together, and new improved graphics. Well, there's a part of Mass Effect 2 where the character is dead, and it dies. But don't worry, it's not a spoiler. It comes back. It's more about how that happens. But there's a statue in a special edition where it shows a dead Commander Shepard floating in space. And you could get this for people who are collectors and this sort of thing. And the idea behind the marketing was, well, we just want to showcase pivotal milestone moments in the game. Well, not only did they release this, is kind of odd. It's just like a corpse floating. We'll have a picture up, floating in space, but they only use the female Commander Shepard. There's not a male version of it floating around, which is odd. So they end up having to release an apology saying that it was insensitive, and everybody got really upset about it. If they did get any of these casts are made, I bet they were worth a butt ton of money because
Yeah.
they're pulling them back. And it was supposed to be a pre-sales kind of a scenario where if you pre-ordered something, you get it. And it says that on June 13th, BioWare has canceled the pre-sales of the Commander Shepard death statue. In an email, BioWare explained the statue was supposed to be a part of a whole series centered around some of the key emotional moments in the franchise. They pulled the statue from the store along with a T-shirt that also featured Shepard's corpse and their birth and death years, at least until further notice. The pre-order items will automatically be refunded, so it looks like they're not going to hand them out. But if somebody could get
Mm.
their hands on it, you know. But overall, they had to apologize because they said the statue was intended to be a part of this whole series. The way we announced it did not convey that properly, nor does it give the moment in the series the credit it deserves. So basically, it's one of these PR things that they stepped their foot in. It was just an oddity. It's why I threw it in there. It's just kind of a weird thing for people to get upset about. Uh, and it's also a weird campaign. So it's both weird that people are upset about it, and it's also weird that it was a campaign they decided to do. So, of all
Yeah,
the things that they could do, this is what they did. I mean, there's a ship in the game called the Normandy. It's beautiful. Why not just release a model of the ship? Things like
yeah.
that. So, I don't know if you've ever played those games or not, Doug, but they're pretty good, believe it or not.
I've watched a lot of gameplay trailers and videos on it, but I've never got to play it. It I agree, this is a little weird, but this reminded me, and I don't know if you've heard of it, McFarlane Sculptures or
Oh,
McFarlane
they do a
Models.
good job.
They do a really good job, but they're kind of violent. I mean, they're definitely, I think, for an older generation or adults. I'm kind of looking at their catalog now. They've got the Flash and Batman for their 23 catalog, but going back to Walking Dead, they've got some superheroes. That's what I thought this was. It's kind of more for adults. It's a little graphic, and
Yeah,
I mean, I see the offensive nature to it, but also if she dies in the game, you're kind of memorializing her, I guess. So
I guess
I'm
so.
kind of conflicted, I guess.
Well, and some people play it as both, both character gender types. Why not have both? That is weird. Why choose
Yeah,
just the
it should be an
female one?
option. Yeah.
That was
Hmm.
again. I just think they didn't handle it correctly. But yeah, you're spot
No.
on. I mean, a lot of people collect different statues. Some of them get really expensive. Some of them can be graphic. So maybe that was the angle. They thought that was their demographic that they were shooting
Hmm.
for. So
Yeah.
it's a good point. So that wraps up the nerd news for this week. Let's get into one of our primary topics that we have here. This past week, Microsoft had the Xbox Showcase 2023. Doug, you watched this real time, didn't you? I had to catch the recording on it just because of work and the timing of it all, and I did get a chance to check it out. What were some of the things that you watched it real time? Did you see like how many people? Does it show you how many people are watching at that time? How long is it? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I tuned in about 30, 40 minutes before, and they have a nice countdown. I didn't want to miss anything. And I kept seeing the number building and building and building. I'd say the highest I ever saw people watching it live was about 340,000, which is just crazy to me, you
That's
know.
awesome.
I mean, you can imagine like the Super Bowl and stuff like that, but we don't have a watch counter. So to see a watch counter of a live event was just very interesting to me.
And not to
And
mention
then you look
how many
over,
watched after, like me, right? Because it's in the middle of the day.
yeah,
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 yeah. I do wonder what
absolutely.
those numbers are.
And then you look over to the side in the comments, and most of them, are pretty like, ooh, ah. But it was really cool to see the rise and fall for different games during the showcase. Some games take Fable. I think it was the first one they showed. Lots and lots of comments like Fable. Oh yeah, yeah, and then it keeps going up and down. And then Starfield, which we'll talk about, the comments just start skyrocketing, and they're going so fast I can't even read it. So looking at the viewer count, looking at the comments, that was a cool addition to watching the trailers.
Yeah, kind of adds a sense of community to it. And again, you have to
Hmm.
remember a lot of these showcases
Yep.
are in the wake of there's not an E3 this year. And E3 has been struggling. E3 was the Electronic Gaming Expo where everybody come together and make their announcements. But there's been this trend where the companies like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo have been doing their own announcements. This is kind of replacing that. So
Yep.
adding those comments and that sort of thing and having it live, I think they're trying to bring together that excitement, for the things that they're announcing. So, let's
Yeah.
jump in, man. Like right at the top of the list, you mentioned Fable. What did you see? What were your thoughts on that?
It looked really good. It started out with a guy narrating, and it's not a spoiler. It's a trailer. You go out there, you watch it. At the end, you see that this guy talking is a giant, supposedly up on the beanstalk. Jack and the giant beanstalk. The Jack character looks to be played by a female. And I don't know if you've played the old Fable series, but it looked really good, kind of talking about all the fairy tales and tall tales and stuff.
Yeah, the original Fable series came out on the Xbox, and we're talking OG Xbox, first one, in September of 2004. It's an action role playing game. What was interesting about it has a very ambitious fantasy world tied to it. and you could choose, very similar to Star Wars, light side, dark side.
Mm,
You were able to choose through your actions what you did in the world, and that's huge for the time.
yeah.
And it was a great game. They didn't, that I remember, it's been a long time since I played, they didn't follow traditional story tales. They were, if anything, they're like fractured fairy tales, but it kind
Mhm.
of had its own story. I thought it was interesting that for this round, it's very Jack and the Beanstalk, which the prior ones had their own story mode to it, and it was really kind of focused on the decisions that you make and whether you're a good person or a bad person. So this, it seems to be story wise a bit of a deviation, but obviously it was a very impressive demo. And a lot of people love the Fable world, so I'm interested in see where this goes. I thought it was a good one for them to open up with, definitely.
Yeah, it was definitely a great start to the show, and then it kept going from there. I mean, I'm kind of looking at the list I made. You put some stuff on there. We didn't put everything. We just kind of put the highlights. We'll definitely drop a link for everybody. Go check it out. There might be some titles that you're more interested than we are. The next one that really caught my eye was Star Wars Outlaws. The play looks really good. The story looks really interesting.
I think this was more of a cinematic. They didn't play any gameplay footage, did they?
No, but I mean, just the atmosphere, I'm guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying, and what the story's going to be. Yeah,
Definitely. It's basically leaning into the underworld, or the whole the whole thing in Star Wars. It's about the Empire fighting the Republic. However, underneath all that, and the hints to it, of course, is with Han Solo, is that there's a whole world of smuggling and crime, the crime world, right? Looks like that's what Star Wars Outlaws is going to focus on. So it's an interesting premise, and a thing to focus on, within that universe itself. But yeah, it
mm.
looks good. It really does.
And
Um,
then the companion Nyx, the little
oh
I don't know
yes,
what kind of animal it is. I
yeah.
got to give me one of those.
Though, I felt like every single game that, and this is equal to Sony, every single game has a companion. you
Yeah,
know,
you don't
even
want to be alone on your adventure. Yeah,
I guess so. That's a funny thing that seems to be in all these games. You always have a cute little
yeah.
cuddly companion with this that everybody falls in love with. Maybe it's to sell merch. I don't know. But it seems
Okay,
to be a
now
theme.
you're gonna have to help me with names. This to me reminds me of the cat that swallows the cube on Avengers.
Oh my gosh, you would do that.
Oh, but it's like you think this is a cute little animal, but it's like a crazy, crazy monster.
It is. It is the I have to try to search and find that here real quick. Oh, Goose. Goose is the and here you go. This is straight from the Google AI. You're real time,
Yeah.
man. this
Awesome. I
is
like it.
this is what Google's AI says in the movie Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers' cat, if I could read, is Goose is actually an alien creature called the Flurkin. Flurkins are similar
Flurkin. That's it.
to Earth cats in appearance and behavior, but they emit tentacles from their mouth, and they can also swallow objects for protection and regurgitate them later. So it goes on from there about the where Flurkins came from,
Yeah.
Goose's plate. Oh, by the way, the real cat's name is Reggie. Who, oh my gosh, who was
Google
chosen?
AI for the win there.
They
Yeah.
casted Reggie because of his expressive face.
Oh.
Hey,
So he wasn't like Grumpy Cat.
no, Google AI for the win, man. Look at that. See,
Yeah,
we're using it
awesome.
live. That's awesome. So it's cool when I do searches, I get way more detail like that,
Yeah.
like right at the
We're
beginning.
definitely gonna have to keep checking that out for the fans there.
I don't have to go into links. That's the other part. Sorry, I diverted us. I didn't mean to. But
Oh, no, no, that's good. That's what makes a good show. We're actively researching for you guys. We want to give you the correct answer,
that's right.
hopefully.
I know we're
Or
wrong
I
sometimes.
will
But
come back and I'll say, "Yep, I messed up," like I've done before. So,
I know. But we do try to be accurate. So we'll use
yeah,
AI to help us with that, at least as long as AI is free. So the next one on the list was interesting. First of all, this game was huge. In 2023, Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, I want to explain to you, Flight Simulator's been around forever. And it is like one of the most realistic flight sims. Microsoft's made it for years. What made the prior version 2023 so special was not only was it gorgeous and highly
hmm
accurate, they tied it into, get this, they tied it into Bing's, how Bing has its own mapping system, kind of like Google Maps or GPS
yeah,
data, so that you can get directions. They tied it into its satellite data footage. And so what happens is they also tied it into weather. So if you happen to be flying, I'll give you a great example. I think it was a little year ago. There was a hurricane 2 years ago, maybe. There was a hurricane down in Florida. Everybody who owned Flight Simulator jumped into it and they flew to Florida and they could fly through the hurricane because
Oh my gosh.
they had real-time weather. So if it's raining in Ohio and you're flying your plane on your computer, it's raining on your plane. If it's snowing, it's snowing.
Oh,
If it's a
yeah.
hurricane, it's a hurricane. If it's a tsunami, it's a tsunami. And what's awesome is real time, they tied not only the weather system in, but they tied in all of the satellite footage from being into the game. So that as the satellites take new footage, the terrain changes. And of course, they added 3D models to wrap around it. So that was just huge for that game and the immersion level. Well, they're taking it a step further with 2024. And what's so cool about this is they're introducing new types of airplanes, which is like, okay, Keith, they've done that before. This is different. That you have missions. If you want to do Coast Guard rescue at sea, you can do that. If you want to
Yeah.
be somebody that flies helicopters for transport delivery of large sea land boxes, you can do that. I mean, there's so many things. People who get rescued by, get lost on mountains, you can do rescue for that.
Yeah.
And it had expanded not only into helicopters and that sort of thing. So they're adding mission elements into the realism, and then you throw that in with the weather. I think it's pretty cool. They're doing a great
Yeah.
job with it. And then, of course, you put the note on here. They put the fictional game Dune, not Doom, the game Dune,
Yeah.
the Ornithopter. Those are those really cool bug leg looking spaceships will be in the
Mhm.
game as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of a partnership, I guess.
Yeah, they definitely shocked everybody with that because, like I said, the comments just exploded when that came on screen. So it was at the very end, and it said something also featuring the ornithopter, and it looks beautiful. I mean, in the game, in a desert level. So
Yeah, it's really cool what they're doing with it. Who knows?
yeah,
It's pretty cool. They're taking a flight sim that's so realistic and doing really cool stuff with it. So I
yeah,
think it's awesome.
yeah.
People go crazy for this game. By the way, they buy the full on flight yokes, flight sticks,
Hmm.
command control centers. I mean, people go nuts with their
Oh yeah,
setups for
I've
these.
seen some really high dollar setups. If you want to see some cool stuff, just check that out on YouTube. Some people have entire rooms devoted
Yeah,
to it.
they don't
It's
play
amazing.
other games. They only play flight
Yep.
sim. Yeah. So
Mm.
in some of their stories that they can even train on it for their pilot's license as well. It's
Yeah,
that in depth and such. So very very
it
cool.
looks.
All right, man. You pick up the next one. What else we got?
Excuse me. So yeah, for the next one, I had to pick the strangest one. I mean, Japanese anime or anime from other countries is strange already, but this game just seems so weird. I mean, the graphics and the details and the backgrounds look great, but there's just a lot going on. What did you see this? What did you think of that?
I did. It's Path of the Goddess.
Yep.
Specifically, it's Kunitsu Gami, Path of the Goddess, and it is gorgeous graphics wise. Like you just not seen anything like it. I believe it's rooted inside of Japanese fables, but
Hmm.
it's got some weird stuff in it. It's got gates with tentacles coming out of it, and really weird. It looks like an action fighting game, but open
Hmm.
worldish. It kind of reminds me a little bit about like Dynasty Warriors, kind of those button mashers where you're fighting
Yeah.
a lot of characters at once. But it does seem to also have a party based system where you can team together to fight like big bosses and that sort of thing. But it was cool looking, but it was weird looking as well.
It had a very cool samurai theme to it,
Hmm.
but then monsters and aliens and
It got weird
tentacles.
really
Yeah,
quick.
it got weird.
But Sony had, I would dare say, the Sony showcase had like 80% of their games were like that. They were all beautiful but
Yeah,
freaking weird,
yeah.
just way out there
But I
animation.
mean, that's what people like, I guess.
I
Huh?
guess so. I guess so. Let's see, Doug. The next one, Keanu Reeves was on the showcase,
Yeah, he
and
made a big announcement about an expansion for Cyberpunk 2077. I personally own that game. I beat it three different ways. There's like three or four different endings, special endings. Beautiful game all around. But there's a new expansion coming out, Phantom Liberty.
mhm.
And some of the big news is Idris Elba, a really good actor.
Oh,
I
he's
like
amazing.
him. He was actually in The Office as well. I love
Hmm.
that show.
Yep.
He is joining Cyberpunk.
This game is supposed to be this add-on for the game is supposed to be very expansive in that not only does it add missions, it adds a whole new territory for you to explore.
Mhm.
Everybody's really excited. However, there's a little controversy in that people are ticked off that they're charging 20, I think it's gonna be like $20, which I don't think is too bad
Yeah,
for
it's
the
not a
add-on.
free, yeah.
But if it's big enough, why not? If it
Yeah.
brings you back to the game, I don't think it's maybe
Basically a
yeah.
new game, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But a lot of people are very excited about that. So it looks good. That means new
Yeah,
weapons, new cars, new tweaks, and it also means that it's going to breathe life into the game to increase the replayability factor into it. So I think it's a good thing.
yeah. Yeah, and, the hits kinda kept coming. The next one that really caught my attention, I first thought it was a sequel to BioShock. I mean, it looks so much like, BioShock Infinite, but as I kept watching, there are some differences. It's called Clockwork Revolution. It's kinda set in a 1930s, 40s steampunk era, I believe, if I'm describing it right.
Yep, you are.
It looks really good. But yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was a sequel or a remaster or something of BioShock Infinite.
Dude, that's spot on. I kind of thought the same thing when I saw it. I was like, wow, it has very BioShock Infinite feel to it,
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so it's interesting because it's all steampunk, all steam technology. Graphics look really good.
yeah.
The guns are just over the top, like
Oh, yeah.
steam driven. So I don't know. I'm into it. I think it looks good. I think they're going for the BioShock thing. BioShock's a great game. So if they can even
Oh, yeah.
capture some of that same thing that BioShock did, more power to them, man. I think that's really good. So I'm looking forward to that one. It looked good.
Yep. And then, a couple more things, nothing that really touched the list for me. We won't talk too much about them, but I'll kinda go down. There's a new Forza Motorsports coming out. There's, I Like a Dragon. I just tell you all, you just need to look at it. It looked like Yakuza, but I don't know if it's Yakuza.
I think it's in the
A
same
lot of
universe.
RPGs. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the theme this year is RPG games. People want an adventure. People want open world stuff.
Yeah.
So lots of good announcements. They start to close out the show with hardware announcements,
Hmm.
which I thought was really good. I've talked to a lot of my friends. You have a PlayStation, but some of my friends have an Xbox. They're having a really hard time, or they did have a hard time getting hardware. So, Xbox or Microsoft, as the company, said they're going to ramp up production of the Xbox Series X and they're going to expand the hard drive space for the Xbox Series S, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
So a lot more games for the Xbox Series S, which is kind of a lesser model, maybe a little lesser specs. And then they're going to ramp up production for their premium Series X model.
Yeah, the fundamental difference between the X and the S was the resolution set. Whether you can reach 60 frames per second on the S at 4K versus also doing 8K. So
Hmm.
it's really about if you don't have a 8K TV, it doesn't matter much. That's one. Two, also it's all digital, no disk drive on the S.
Yeah.
It's interesting. They bumped up the X, I think, to 1 TB, which to me is just laughable because
Still not enough, I don't
it's
think.
not
Yeah.
enough. Like, I mean, shoot,
No.
man. I on my PlayStation, I think I did a 2 TB in it, and just the other day when I downloaded Diablo, which we'll talk about, like I had to remove something
Yeah.
because I had so much stuff. But these games, you're looking at like 400 gig, or higher.
Oh,
Some of
yeah.
them are 800 gig. So you're
Yep.
getting close. It's just insanity on some of these full downloads. But I'm glad that they are at least increasing it. I will also give them major props for it. It's a very affordable console. I mean, look at like
Hmm.
229 for some of these,
Yeah.
and they spent the latter half of. I mean, it was a good 20 minutes dedicated to Starfield by Bethesda. And I will say this, it will come out on PC and on console, but for somebody who likes to sit in the living room, and if I don't want to stream it, it is appealing to me, especially with it not coming out for PlayStation anymore. It is appealing that like for a couple $100, I could just get like the low level S series, throw that in the living room,
Hmm.
and just if I
Yeah.
wanted to make it a Starfield only machine, that kind of a thing. So I could do
Definitely.
that. Now, why would I do that for one game? Well, if you saw this showcase, you will understand why. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, Doug, you have been jonesing over this game for
I have.
ever since you got
Yeah.
into Fallout. So what's your
Yeah.
takeaway, your quick takeaways on Starfield, what they announced, what's the new information found out? Why are you excited about it? I know I am. I have been for a while as well. What was it about what they showcased that you liked?
I keep talking Starfield over the last couple shows, last couple weeks and months with you, and we haven't really seen anything in depth. And then they end this summer showcase, and then they kind of say Starfield Direct. I'm like, oh, so there's another event. So you have the summer showcase, then you have Starfield Direct by Microsoft and Bethesda. The thing that excites me is all the missions you can do, all the worlds. I mean, the amount of customization that they displayed is amazing. You've got companions to travel with, weapons, crafting. I mean, and the list goes on. Um, it looks so good, and I believe I've read some articles that Xbox has every QA tester available working on Starfield.
Currently.
Yep. We had talked about they're making Starfield controllers, Starfield headsets, and microphones. So Microsoft's definitely going all out on the branding for it. You probably will see a branded console. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
So they're going all out.
They are. They gave it a huge portion of time for their showcase. Um, I will tell you, for the longest time, I've been kind of like, well, is it going to be ready by a September date? I feel after watching the showcase how much they showed, and then there were reports where they're saying that not only did they have every tester on it, the claim that they're making, or at least one of the head of the studio groups is saying that Starfield has the fewest amount of bugs in their bug tracking of any Bethesda game ever released. That's a big
Dang,
statement because Bethesda
that
games
is
always
big.
are super
Yeah.
buggy. So they're really touting about how they think it's ready. So I will say, with as much as they show and as far along as it is, and then some of the reports, it might make their September date, which would be awesome. I
Yeah.
think it'll be good. And for those people that just frame of reference, it's basically like Skyrim or Fallout in space. The big difference is they're trying to make it be more like real science. I will say, I feel like they are taking and putting their spin on what's already out in the market between Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous, and No Man's Sky, and they're putting in there. No Man's Sky is open world, a lot of crafting, a lot of gathering materials. You do the same in this.
Mhm.
The fighting element, the shooting element of first person combat, that's in Star Citizen. So
Mhm.
there's all these elements, the way the ships fly, the complexity of some of the ships is kind of like Elite. So they're mashing it all together. And the things that got me really stoked about it was you can customize your ship in so many ways. There's blocks of that you can build like Legos, and you can make this thing be massive. You can make it be really small.
Yeah.
You can tweak this thing out, and then the best part, you can walk around on the inside of it and hire a
Mhm.
crew and run it. If you want to have a little Star Trek experience where you feel like you're Captain Kirk, you can do that. If you want to be a pirate, you can do that.
Yeah.
Open world, go anywhere. If you see, their big thing is kind of like the big deal with Skyrim. Skyrim always said, hey, if you see a mountain over there, you want to go to it, you can go to it. They're doing that,
Mhm.
but with planets. If you're standing on a planet, you see a moon in the distance, if you want to go there, you can go there, you can land on it. You've been doing that with No Man's Sky and Elite Dangerous for quite some time now. However, it's their take on it. A lot of procedural generation. It is not multiplayer, as far as we know, and they point out specifically, because it's procedure generated. If you go to a planet, your experience will be completely different than your friend who may go to that.
Mm.
So it's
That makes
still
sense.
still single player, but it looks amazing. Looks awesome. It might actually make its fall date, so I'm excited about it. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talked about crafting of the ships. I brought up that they said you can be a heavy space hauler or a pirate or an
Trader.
explorer. I
Mhm.
mean, and the thing that excites me, I haven't messed with them too much, but mods. So when this comes out and then the PC modding community gets to it, you'll have so many missions and other cool things that'll just add to the playability. I'm definitely going to have a lot of hours invested in this, I believe.
Bethesda's very mod friendly, like Skyrim. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
What they do is they typically will give the same tools that they use to develop the game to the community, whether it's mission builders. If they do that same thing here, which they've done with all their other games like Fallout, they're very mod friendly. It just gives this life. That's why these games are released, 10, 15, 13 years ago, and people are still playing them. because
Mhm.
there's so much you can do with them. So I'm excited about it for them to add it. I think it'll be good, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, man.
Yeah, definitely. It was a really good show overall. Look forward to it. Next thing we can move into, I mean, I'm excited about Starfield, but Diablo 4, little update on that.
All right. So what class are you playing on Diablo right now, Doug?
Playing the Rogue. I believe it's a ranged character. I've got some melee attack, but I like kind of being out in the distance and range attacking. I know you've played some heavy tank models.
I've got two actually that I
Hmm.
did, but the one I've stuck with the most is also range. I've got a druid who can be both a tank, like you get right in the middle of the action and melee, or he can also stay back and shoot things.
Yeah.
But my heavy class that I have is a necromancer, which is so wicked because as bodies fall, you can raise the dead from their carcasses, and you essentially
Hmm.
have an
Yeah.
army. And I think I had a time I have like 8
Yeah.
skeletons and a blood or a stone golem, which is a really great big
Yeah.
incredible hulking creature that kind of tanks. And I just stand back and let my army just kind of go, and I just cast like little curses to weaken the enemies. It's a blast. It's a fun game. We're having a good
Yeah.
time with it. So
Yeah, the game's been great. Like I said, you raised the dead. I've been shooting at your, and I'm like, oh, it's doing nothing. That's Keith's guys again. You keep raising these skeletons and stuff. I
I
said, oh
they
no,
they do
yeah,
they don't do a good job differentiating because you're right. Even when you're playing the necromancer character, like when you're raising all of that on the screen and it's so busy, they obviously they're evil looking skeletons with swords. I mean, they
mm,
look like enemies.
yeah,
So especially whenever like we'll come around a corner, we've gone into like rooms of dungeons and it's full of skeletons.
oh
I
yeah.
don't even know where mine are because mine are
I
in there
just
fighting
if I don't
skeletons.
get hit points on it, I just shoot at something else.
I'm
Yeah.
glad there's no player versus player because
Oh my gosh,
it'd be over
yeah.
in a
Some of
heartbeat.
our spells and some of our stuff gets a little crazy in there.
Exactly. And we play with two other friends. We have a 4-person
Yeah,
clan that we've been playing with, and it gets nuts. I know our one
yeah.
friend, Aaron, he plays a druid class, and then
And
Joe,
he's just in the thick of it
he's
all the
always in the
time.
middle. You can never find him because he's just clustered up there.
Yeah,
But he's just beating things because he
yeah,
turns into like a werewolf or a
yeah.
werebear, I think, or something like that. And then Joe plays a sorcerer who's also range class. But I think Joe's working on a barbarian, so both of them can be like kind of in the middle. So you got to have these
I'll
tactics
just
to
hang
balance
out
it
in the
out.
back.
Me
Yep.
too. You and I are always hanging out in the back, just
Yep.
watching stuff.
We're doing good back there. Yep.
So it's a great game
Uh,
though. So if you haven't played it, I will say
yep.
the crossplay is beautiful. Doug, you play
Mm,
on PC, we play on PlayStation.
yep.
It's just awesome. We don't even have to use a Discord because the in game it
We're
lets
using
you.
in-game chat. Yep.
Yeah, you just switch over to your clan. You make a clan, join it. So it doesn't matter what platform you're on. It's
Hmm.
very very well done. So love
I
it.
like it a lot. Yep.
So yeah, man. So we'll round it out with a little bit of a preview. I did see the Flash movie. Doug has yet to see it. I'm not going to say anything. No spoilers. I will tell
Appreciate that.
you,
Yeah.
it's not perfect, but overall, I liked it. It is positive, in my opinion. I do think you should see it. I do have lots and lots of thoughts about it, especially in the wake of how the DC movie franchises are changing. However, we will dig into that perhaps next week if you get the opportunity to
I
see it.
will try to make it this week. Yep.
Exactly. Since it opened this weekend, I don't, think we should like dive into a review anyway. I don't want
No,
to
no,
ruin
we,
anything for
yeah,
anybody. So
no.
we'll get into it next week. But all right, brother, I think that rounds us out to the end here. So we want
Yeah.
to thank everybody for joining us for episode number 20. All kinds of exciting things happen. We will see you at episode number 21. Doug, bring us home. Any final closing thoughts?
Yeah. I appreciate everybody listening to us. Talking today. It's going to be an exciting year this year, next year, both in the game world and the movie
Movies.
world.
All the
We're
movies
going to have
this
plenty to
summer.
talk about.
Indiana
Google
Jones.
AI hooked us up today.
They did Google
Indiana
AI.
Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna start using Google AI a little bit more maybe there because
Yeah.
it was kind of nice. And yeah, we got some
And
awesome movies. Blue Beetle is also. I reminded me that's gonna be in August
yeah.
between Indy and Indiana
And I don't know
Jones.
the story of that at all, but it looks really awesome, and
Me
I'm
neither.
excited
It's
to
one of those
learn about it.
obscure DC ones, but the trailer looks really
Mhm.
good. It's got the kid from Cobra
It
Kai in
does.
it. I'm excited. So we got so many cool things to talk about this summer.
Tons of stuff to come, and
Yep,
we'll love to have you come back and listen to us, watch us.
that's right. Well, everybody, you have an awesome week, and we will talk to you
Yep.
soon. Stay nerdy.